All right, you're very welcome to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. Raf Diallo here. As ever, we're on RTÉ.ie, Apple, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's a busy one today. Shamrock Rovers get their UEFA Conference League campaign underway on Thursday. The LOI title races continue to deliver in spades in the men's and women's Premier Divisions, and we've much more besides. Plus, we'll give you details on all the live games we have coming up on TV domestically and in Europe. So I'm joined today by former Ireland winger Keith Treacy and ex-Shamrock Rovers and St Pat's keeper Barry Murphy. Plus, I've also been speaking to former Ireland international Méabh De Búrca. We'll bring that to you a little bit later on. But I suppose, first off, Keith, this is only the fifth campaign in which a League of Ireland team is playing in a European competition proper. And I know with the Champions League, the Europa League, all that, it's been kind of demystified over the years when it comes to watching Premier League teams in La Liga and all that. There's not much mystique around it, but it still feels like there's a bit of novelty when it comes to a League of Ireland team playing in Europe.
Yeah, there definitely is. When we get to it's not the group stages anymore, but when we get to the European stage proper, it's something that should be really celebrated. It's such a hard thing to do. It's been very rarely done over the last couple of years, Raf, as you've already said. So, look, it should be really celebrated. And look, I know we're all probably thinking, look, if Shamrock Rovers can go and win a couple of games, it would be brilliant. But I honestly think they'll be eyeing the likes of the Larne game, to be thinking maybe we could go and get a couple of points on the board. I think the Larne game was obviously away, but I think they've a very, very good chance in that game. There's one or two unknowns in the group as well, but APOEL are the first team up. They're not a bad team. They can move the ball really quickly. Nobody at this level is going to be considered a bad team. So every game's going to be really, really difficult. They're going to be going into, I wouldn't say the unknowns, because they'll get tapes, they'll get videos of these players, they'll be able to brush up on them. But when you're not competing against them week in, week out, when they're not under your nose, you can take little things for granted, and just seeing something on a telly is not quite the same as, being up against it in the flesh. So they'll be taking little steps into the unknown, but I just hope they compete like they have done throughout Europe. I know the league phase, the league looks like it's going to be getting better for Shamrock Rovers. They seem to have hit that little bit of consistency. So as long as they compete really well, and yeah, I have a look. I wouldn't be backing them to get out of the league phase, Raf, but I think they'll throw a few punches. I think they might win a few games and get some points on the board. And we're already personally, as a neutral within it, I'm proud as punch that there's an Irish team in it. So I hope they do well and keep doing us proud.
Yeah, and as you said, APOEL Nicosia, the Cypriot champions there, first up at Tallaght Stadium, and it's also probably the Jack Byrne derby, given he was playing for them in a sense. That was the club before he came back to Shamrock Rovers for his current spell. Also, Killian Sheridan played for them at one point. Before we delve deeper into it, let's just listen to Stephen Bradley, who was speaking to Oisín Coyne after the 3-0 defeat to St Pat's on Friday, because he also touched on building into this European game and trying to shed some of the form they've had in the league.
I think that after they score, I think in the first few minutes, Graham has a one-on-one and the defender comes out nowhere and makes a block. So we had got chances in the game, but look, did we deserve something out of the game? Probably not. I think Pats, to be fair, deserved to win the game and look fresher. They looked like they hadn't had the schedule we've had, and it looked that way tonight.
Derry and Shell's obviously dropping points tonight as well. Does it really feel like a huge opportunity missed?
No, there's only a point difference in what it was before the game. Are we disappointed that we haven't won a game? Of course, we're always disappointed when we don't win. But like I said, there's a 1 point in the difference to what it was before the game. So just nice and calm, regroup, get ready for next week.
Talk to me about next week, European football back here in Tallaght. Is it really nice to kind of get a disconnect, if you will, from the league? The players kind of can reset for that?
I know it's just it's a really big game, and you want to be involved in big games. We've worked so hard to get ourselves into group stage football again, second time in 3 years, which is incredible from the players, and we're going to try and win some games and get some points on the board starting next Thursday. We're against a really good team, we know that, but we're going to try and win the game.
Right, so Stephen Bradley there speaking to Oisín Coyne, and of course Rovers' form had actually been pretty good in terms of momentum in recent weeks, Barry, but this stinging defeat to Pats, which really dents the title race, and we'll talk about the Pats game in more detail later on, but is it the best or worst thing that could happen to them in the build-up in terms of this game against APOEL, in terms of like trying to spring them back into action, or just to I'm almost sort of like a reminder of the levels they need to get to?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think it was a really bruising defeat. The manner of the defeat, I think they were totally outclassed by Pats on the night. Didn't really lay a glove on Pats, and you're going up against, that's the kind of quality you're going to face in Europe. That speed, it's all about speed in Europe, and the two wingers and El Bazzetti and Emilio up top as well, and Mulroney on that side. They're the type of quality you're going to get against APOEL. APOEL have two speedy wingers as well and good midfielders. So listen, it's a tough one to take, but what Rovers have done well as of late, and Stephen always mentions, is they've bounced back from these sorts of defeats, and especially the games in Europe where they've had a defeat, they've gone and done well in their next game, and they've got a good run of form in Tallaght Stadium in terms of European games. They've only been beaten there a couple of times over the qualifying rounds in the last number of years. They put it up to Sparta Prague as well. They played really well, lost 2-0, but played well and took some big scalps along the way at Tallaght Stadium. So it's a bit of a fortress in terms of European fixtures. And listen, if they can get a point against APOEL and make it a good start, you'd fancy them to pick up points against the new Saints, Larne, going away to Banja Luka at home as well, and then over to Rapid Vienna, and then the big tie in Chelsea. So listen, I can see them getting points off the TNSs and even something off Banja Luka as well and Larne. So if they get up around the 9-10 point mark, you just never know. That might be enough to get them out of that phase.
Yeah, because I think, Keith, as you had alluded to earlier, like there is the league phase makes things a lot more open. When you actually look, I think, in the Champions League, obviously they're all the same format. You have to get into the top 24 of the 36 teams that have qualified. The only difference is the number of games. I think the average, from what they've looked at in the Champions League and Europa League, is if you can get to the 15-point mark over 8 matches, you're in with a very good shout of getting to the playoff round as for the first knockout round. But the Conference League, 6 games only. So if you get to 9 points, I think that probably gets you a good chance. 10 probably gets you over the line.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be. I think Shamrock Rovers, excuse me, be right on the right on a knife edge of actually being able to get out of it. As you say, I think the format is going to be brilliant. It will take a little bit of time for people to get used to it, but I think the lower end teams really have a chance now to try to progress into the top 24, wherever it is in the Champions League. So, yeah, I really think they will be looking at APOEL and thinking, look, again, the Cypriot champions, they move the ball really quickly. As Barry says, they've lots of pace on the wings. They will have to defend. There'll be times when they're under the cosh, but you're not going into that game quaking in your boots. The Chelsea game, brilliant occasion, go to Stamford Bridge, but everybody's probably expecting Shamrock Rovers to get beat. But the Larne game, the TNS, one or two others within the group, you're thinking, you pick up full points here. And if they can go and beat Larne and then go and pick up a win in Wales against the new Saints, they've 6 points in the bag, and then you're only thinking a couple of draws here, go and nick something here or there. Yeah, I think Stephen Bradley will be licking his lips at it, and I thought his interview there was a breath of fresh air. So many times you've heard managers come out and say, "Well, we were lucky we competed." He did. He alluded to how strenuous the last couple of weeks have been in terms of fixtures, but generally he just said, "No, we didn't deserve to get anything out of the game. We weren't good enough. Pats were a better team." And that's it. It was just real, and I like that from managers, because so often they'll come out and there's an awful lot of fluff, but. Yeah, Shamrock Rovers done really well. Still banging the title race. I don't expect them to win it, but with Europe just on the horizon, still banging the title race when they look like they were dead and buried for a long time. Yeah, this poor season has a chance of going into a very good season all of a sudden.
Yeah, and then the way APOEL have been playing as well, Barry. I mean, looking at them, granted, they're coming in as the reigning Cypriot champions. They've won the 29th, and that's a record in terms of Cypriot history at the end of last season. But they won it on goal difference and this was after a 5-year trophy drought, which is kind of rare by their standards domestically. But their form so far this year, 3 wins, 1 draw, and 1 defeat as well from 5 this season. And at the weekend, they drew 0-0 with the bottom side, which is Omonia 29 IS. Now, Omonia, not to be mistaken with their actual derby rivals. There's a couple of clubs with the same name in the league. They've scored 11, conceded 4 times this season. And then in the Champions League qualifying, they lost 2-0 over 2 legs to Slovan Bratislava, and then they lost on penalties, surprisingly, as well in the Europa League playoff to a Latvian side, FK RSF. The only thing looking at them is sort of like the amount of internationals they have, with a huge amount of international caps in comparison to Shamrock Rovers players. So if you're looking at it from a Rovers point of view, how do you set up to mitigate that as well? Because I'd imagine the Cypriot side, they're going to be quite streetwise in a sense, because they've been here and done that in terms of European games.
Yeah, well, they've built up a brilliant repertoire over the years of doing that. Shamrock Rovers. Look at the teams they faced in the qualifying rounds. They had Icelandic internationals against Vikingur in the first game. Then they go to play Sparta Prague, full of Czech internationals. They had 4 or 5 players playing in the Euros. Then you go on to the Slovenian champion Celje, who again had 4 or 5 players in the Euros. So they're well used to this caliber of player that they're coming up against. So it's not going to be new to them. And listen, the Shamrock Rovers always score goals in Europe, no matter who they played. They went over to Sparta, scored 2 really good goals against a really good team. So they've got goals in them, and especially in Tala. And these are one-off fixtures as well. So you only get a chance to see each other once. You're not going to get you get a result in the first leg and then they know all about you going into the second leg. That's not going to happen now. That's the beauty of this setup. So I just feel like they've got a real chance going in. They can get something out of that first game and get a bit of momentum going.
Yeah, in terms of the 11 that you'd like to see Shamrock Rovers playing on Thursday, Keith, who would you like to see starting that game based on current form as well domestically?
Well, I'd like to see Graham Burke. I think he done really well on Monday night when he came on against Bows. I thought he did okay against Pats. I don't think there'll be a lot of Shamrock Rovers players that can say they did okay in the Pats game, but from what I've seen, Graham Burke had a couple of chances, just keeps manipulating the ball onto that left foot. Even though everybody knows that's what he wants to do, he's still able to do it. I want to see Farouja. I think he's one of the best players in the league, and in Europe, he always excites me. So look, I think what Barry says is actually it's a good point. This is a one-off game. It's not a two-legger, and you're not going to be you're going away from home, and you have 3 games at home, 3 games away from home. I don't know whether Stephen Bradley be thinking, do we just play the same way for the 6 games? Do we shut up shop away from home, or do we just go for it in every single game and see what we get? I think Shamrock Rovers and Stephen Bradley be thinking, let's just go for it because we're here now. We might take a hiding against Chelsea, but that's going to be at the end of the campaign. So that'll be the reward for the players. This will be the nitty-gritty. Go and do the hard work. Go and do everything you can. Go and get some points on the board and do the country proud. And then you can go and have the reward of getting to Stamford Bridge and have a little pat on the back after that. But yeah, I'm the more I look at that group, Raf, I really don't fear it. And I don't think the players, like the likes of Graham Burke and Irish International, there'll be so many people in that dressing room just licking their lips thinking, not afraid here at all. And I know the APOEL got beat by Slovan Bratislava. I seen Bratislava in the Champions League. I done a Champions League qualifier. They were okay. They're not the best team in the world. And the fact that APOEL have got beat by them over 2 legs, you'd be looking at that thinking, well, if that's their level, I think we can reach that. So, look, it'll be a very tight game. I don't think any team will take a hammering in this game. And yeah, again, Raf, the more I look at it, the more I think Shamrock Rovers have a great chance here.
Yeah, and that's Thursday, 8 o'clock kickoff, and that might well be a tight game, but so is the League of Ireland table pretty much from top to bottom. And looking at the form table, I mean, Shamrock Rovers, even with that defeat to Pats and quite heavy and very stinging defeat, they're third in the form table. Pats are top at the moment. Sligo Rovers are second, but the top 2, Derry and Shelburne Barry, are 6th and 7th respectively. So this is sort of like a league table where it's a title race, but at snail pace from the looks of it, the way it's been going in recent times. But when you look at how it's been turned out, are you looking at it as maybe as a league where it's a dip in quality, or is it the fact that there's teams like Galway and Waterford who got promoted this year and has sort of brought the average level of the league up in a certain sense where there's not a huge gap, that's actually the biggest factor in terms of this being such a tight and closely fought battle from top to bottom?
Yeah, I think the so-called lesser teams have got better and maybe pulled those top teams closer to them. But when you look at the top 3 teams per se, Rovers have been nowhere near their form this year compared to last year. I think they're 12 points, 13 points down on where they were last year, and they still since June have had the same more points than Derry and Shels combined in the last couple of months. So that's incredible. Then Shels and Derry are still up top, but what about Shels and Derry? They've got league winners in the team, but they don't, as a team, have that now have to go and win a league. And you can see that now they're faltering, and that's given Rovers the slight little window to come back into it. But again, Rovers' form has been so patchy that they haven't taken advantage of that. But you look at Damien Duff, and he's trying to find little ways of getting wins and doing things differently. He talks about like watching Only Fools and Horses during the weeks, trying to do something a little bit different, and things like that can work. And I'm sure Keith's had many of them down through the years where a manager that comes in and goes, "Oh, we're not training this week. We're going to do something different to try and take the focus off of Friday." And that's for players who haven't won a league. That's probably what you need. You don't want to be thinking about the game on a Friday all week. You want to just go in, and what they've done in the first 2 rounds of games is go off instinct and off chances, and that's what served him well. And he's trying to get back to that. And on the other hand, Derry, there's probably a lot of pressure on Derry because they've had 2 or 3 cracks at this now and not got close enough to Shamrock Rovers over the 2 years, and suddenly now they're in a title race, and maybe the pressure's shown there as well.
Yeah, and in terms of, like, as Barry said there, the only fools and horses thing with Duffer, what's the quirkiest thing you've experienced in terms of manager trying to maybe, bring, change the atmosphere within a squad, going into maybe a difficult period, or where something a period where like games need to be won, or, to snap yourself out of poor form?
I've had loads, Raf. I've had when I played for Preston with Phil Brown, when we were flirting with relegation. We turned up to Springfield in the training ground, and we literally just jumped on a bus and we all went to the pleasure beach, to the amusements for the day. And we had one where we went on a walk and he bought everybody like a bacon sandwich at the end of it. We've had loads. I've had managers just come in and take us all to the pub and say, "Do you know what? It is what it is, lads. I've rang yous. I gave yous an earful. I've disciplined yous. Let's just go for a point." Even if Paul Ince was the one that just said, "Look, let's just go for a point and see what this does, because we're not getting anywhere." Yeah, I've had, sometimes you get like that in dressing rooms. It gets a little bit tetchy. The media are following you around. It just feels like you can't escape it, and it just needs somebody to crack a joke and lighten the load. And I've been trying to bring this up, and I spoke to Damien Duff on Friday before the game in Tolka, and it's just sometimes you can get bogged down. Duffer's been at the top with Chelsea. Look at Drogheda. In particular, look at Dundalk. Look what they must be feeling. That's dinner on the table pressure. This is going to win a league pressure. I know you can get tight and it can all come in on top of your, Raf, but you're going to win a league. It's not, you know what I mean? Go and play with freedom. Go and enjoy yourself. Shelbourne, for me, I thought they were okay on Friday night. I thought they had the better chances and lucky not to win the game. So I wouldn't be pressing the panic button. They're only in the league 3 years, and it's been wonderful stuff from them largely, but yeah, it just seems to be catching up on them, and it doesn't look like anybody wants to win the league. People are saying to me, Shelbourne can't win it because they've fallen off a cliff. Nobody seems to be mentioning Derry to win the league, and people are saying Shamrock Rovers are going to win it just because nobody else is going to pick up points. I think everybody's going to drop points, pick up points, and I just think Shelbourne will do enough to fall over the line at the end of it.
Yeah, because I suppose from Shell's point of view, Barry, they don't need a reminder, like, even for this, how huge this week is. I mean, they've Pats tonight, which is live on RT2 and the RT Player as well. Coverage starts at 7, kickoff at 7:15, and then they have Shamrock Rovers on Sunday. So they probably having sort of like a distraction or thinking about things in a different way is probably no harm, because you don't need it underlined how big the games you have coming up are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you said to Damien tonight, we'll give you a point, would you take it? He'd snap your hand off just to keep that little bit of momentum going without a defeat. And you look at, they've got Shamrock Rovers and Tala next Sunday. Rovers had that huge game on Thursday to concentrate on. And as much as Stephen probably talks about them still being in the title race, does he really believe that? Is he going to risk players to trying to back up that statement? I don't know if he will on Sunday. I think all eyes will be on Thursday for him. So if they can go and get a point tonight and put that pressure back and bring it to 5 points lead with Derry with a game in hand, I think if they can avoid going to the Brandywell on the last day of the season, if they're 4 points ahead, I think, well, obviously they'll win the league, but they need to be at that 4 point mark, because if they go into that game going to the Brandywell, I just don't fancy them to get something out of it up there. I think the way the Brandywell is and the way they played up there last time, I think it needs to be wrapped up by then. But yeah, I think you take a point tonight for them.
Yeah, because even, I suppose, it was probably a good point, Keith, as you said, Shells played reasonably well against Sligo Rovers, but Sligo were pretty good as well. I mean, the goalkeepers, when we look at it, Conor Kearns and Ed McGinty probably made the biggest impact for both teams, and there was that great chance that Ali Coote had when he ran through as well, and even Sean Boyd had a good game without having kind of clear-cut chances for Shells.
Yeah, I love Sean Boyd. I think he's one of the most effective strikers in the league, and people will be straight away saying he doesn't get into double figures, he doesn't get near 20. But what he brings to you, if you're a winger and you're under pressure, or any player on the pitch for that matter, if you're under pressure, you've just got to flick one up to the air. And he might not win it, Raf, but he'll make sure the centre half doesn't win it. And if the centre half does win it, he's not going to win it clean. He's going to make sure he heads it into a bad area. You go and flood that area, you pick up second balls, and you play from there. It's very, very simplistic stuff, but what you need is a centre forward who will put himself about, who will occupy two centre halves and centre-halves don't want to leave. If one of the centre-halves starts straining into midfield to go and press, you'll hear the other one saying, don't leave me, I don't want to be 1v1. And that's the impact of the man. And I know he's been struggling with his injuries. I thought he was really, really good. He ended up getting man of the match. That wasn't my call, by the way. That was Owen Doyle. If anybody wants to give him a few pelters for that, a non-scoring centre forward getting man of the match. But look, the little flick on when Liam Boort literally just comes on the pitch, he flicks it on. Liam Boort's got to score that. Ali Cute goes through. He's got to score that. So they haven't been as ruthless as they should be. But they've lost a couple of players. They've had a couple of injuries. They've lost that bit of momentum, and they're trying to wrestle it back. And look, that could be a very, very good point. There was, I wouldn't say bills, but there was a feeling of the Shell fans not being happy on Friday night. But then when they heard the results had gone their way, I think you've just drawn with Sligo at home. Sligo were a very, very good team, and we've already said, Raf, they can go and beat anybody, capable of getting a walloping off of anybody as well. But they've a very young team. Their levels will be up and they will be down just because they're such a young team. But yeah, really, really good point. And I think Damien Duff is used to saying already, we won't know if it's a good point until the end of the season. And for my money, I think it will end up being a very good point.
Yeah, and if Shells aren't ruthless, I think the same could be said of Derry City. Obviously, they went to Drogheda, lost 2-1 and really hampered their own title chances as well, Barry. But we'll talk about Drogheda a little bit later on, because obviously they're going to be involved in the FAI Cup semi-finals, and they have a huge opportunity there. But from a Derry City point of view, the lack of cutting edge, they've, apart from the 2-0 win over Shells and the 3-0 over Pats in the Cup, as well as the second leg against Bruno's Magpies in the summer, they failed to score more than one goal in a match for the last 7 league games since trashing Drogheda 5-1 on the 28th of June. And Hoban's obviously been a really good signing from the start of the season, and Danny Mullen's also been chipping in with goals as well. But just the goal contributions overall seem to have dipped a good bit, and it seems to be from outside of the forwards.
Yeah, exactly. And like McMullen and Mullen have been good signings, and Hooban looked to be a brilliant signing at the start of the season, raced into that top scorer, the top of those charts. But since then they've dried up, and it's trying to get Patrick McElhenney fit and get him on the pitch. He's the main playmaker. He's the talisman, nearly the captain up there. So when he hasn't been playing, Patching's been playing, and probably hasn't done enough patching in terms of filling that void. And you kind of saw them going up to Drogheda the other night, and you had a feeling Drogheda were going to get something here, but just the way they're playing and how tight Weavers Park is, as well as the pitch. And you've got those two forwards in Piero and James Taylor. They just bully centre halves, and they just have a bit of a soft underbelly at the moment. There, you just knew those two boys with Conor Kane belting down that left wing was going to do things for Drogheda on the night, and that's how it transpired. You just felt that there was no real kind of leadership about it, grabbing this by the scruff of the neck. You like, if you're offered to go to Weavers Park and you win there and you have a chance of going up to nearly top of the league, then they're the games you look for at the start of the season, the fixtures you want towards the end of the season, no matter how well Drogheda have been doing of late. But again, when the hurdle comes to get over, they just don't do it.
Yeah, and the front two for Drogheda, which we'll talk about a bit later on, obviously, where they were very potent, and that's where the goals came from. Piero scoring, Douglas James Taylor creating both opportunities, or providing both assists, Keith. But that also was aided by a bit of sloppiness from Derry City, which was kind of surprising given what they're fighting for this season.
Yeah, they were just fairly basic mistakes, Raf. Not something you'd expect to see at this time of the season, but again, I go back to defenders smelling danger and not trying to overplay, and especially, when Drogheda are fighting for their life. I always find it a bit crazy when defenders they find this surprise when a striker comes to try and take the ball off. It's like, oh, I didn't think they'd do that. It's like, why wouldn't they try and press you? It's just nonsensical for me. But Derry, I find it hard to get behind Derry. They're so inconsistent. You look at they lost to Drogheda, they lost to Shamrock Rovers, lost to Galway, and just before that they drew with Dundalk. So they're not picking up anywhere near enough points. And when you look at the players they have on the pitch, Raf, they're there or thereabouts for one of the strongest squads in the league. And consistency is a big thing. My mind will go to their Astro pitch at home and think, well, that'll be a big problem. But when you look at the home form's been absolutely fine this season. So you can't throw it at that. But going away to the likes of Drogheda, Dundalk, Galway, although Galway have been fairly strong this season, you want to win the league or you want to be in the mixer towards the end, you've got to be beating teams like that. It's as simple as that. And yeah, they just don't have it. They haven't been anywhere near as ruthless, and they're starting to give up silly goals, which is not something with the likes of a Mark Connolly back there, Andre Wisdom coming in has done all right since he's come in the building as well. They're making mistakes. You just don't see them making, and they're not scoring the goals you'd expect them to score, which is never good. But everybody seems to be running out of legs as they get towards the line, Raf, and that's true about Derry as well.
Yeah, but the one team that are showing plenty of legs and kind of actually have a huge amount of momentum, of course, we talked about from Shamrock Rovers' point of view, it's Pats who beat them 3-0. So let's listen to Stephen Kenny, who was speaking to Oisín Coyne after the game at Tala on Friday.
4 wins on the bounce now. Obviously, some big games still to come this season. Where can this Pats side finish this season?
Oh, we've a lot to do, and it's about points on the board at this stage. So, we don't have them on the board. But from our point of view, we played 6 European games to a very, very high level. Had big wins here. We played Istanbul Başakşehir here, and we played Sabah here from Azerbaijan, who, they're a high quality team. So the games here stood us in great stead, and as you say, we've taken 16 from 18 in the league in that period, and scored 3 against Shamrock Rovers tonight, 3 last week against Waterford, 3 against Sligo, 4 against Drogheda, 3 against Vaduz in Europe. So we've been scoring goals, and they've been coming from different areas, and that was a problem for us when I first came in. That was a big issue. We couldn't, we weren't very prolific. So, so the fair credit to the players for actually stepping up and delivering those kind of performances.
And then it's Shelbourne next week. You obviously must be brimming with confidence heading into that.
No, I think it's a different game tactically completely. Shelbourne are the league leaders. They're there on merit. They've been they don't concede any very few chances in their games. They another clean sheet tonight, and they're at home, and they're 4 points clear at the top of the league. So we've a lot of work to do. Tonight's game won't bear any relevance really to Monday. It'll be a different game completely tactically, and we'll have to get ourselves ready and dust ourselves down and recover to go again on Monday.
All right, so that's Stephen Kenny there speaking in Tala after that 3-0 win for its Pats team over Shamrock Rovers. And like you kind of imagine if they were in the title race right now, they probably have run away with it. But obviously they're coming from very far back, and it's possibly trying to sneak into Europe, Barry. But the platform for that game was set up in the first minute, essentially, with the corner kick. Can you just talk me through Leon Poles' positioning there, just as a goalkeeper? Because I suppose it is interesting watching a team with red jerseys and white sleeves sort of making the most of set pieces, as we've seen with Arsenal in recent times, and the way they crowded the goalkeeper was just really interesting how they did it, and left Redmond basically he couldn't really miss from where he was.
Yeah, you said it, Raf. It's the Arsenal corner. It's a dead copy, really. You look at where they start at the back post, and they run towards the middle. They're trying to isolate McNulty, pull him out of that gap to isolate Redmond on the penalty spot to come around the back to head it in. Listen, it's well known Leon's not one of the most commanding goalkeepers, but his starting position's all wrong. He's 2 yards too close to the front post. He's got to start deeper for a ball, especially an in-swinger like that. He can come on and meet an in-swinging ball, you can get a punch on it, but you just can't backtrack like that because you're always going to get blocked off. And it's something the Pat staff, having spoken to him, mentioned about that they looked at the Arsenal thing, looked at the way Vicario was for Spurs in that game, in the first game, and then the City goal. They noticed the same thing. Leon was doing the same thing, and they just put it right in on top of him, got the block on him, and then Joe Redmond comes around the back and scores a tap in. It could have been going in anyway, but it's something that Leon's really struggled with over this season, the commanding part of it. Yeah, and then Joseph Anang on the other end, and I suppose his form, but also some of the saves he pulled off against Rovers. Yeah, that save from Graham Burke is phenomenal. We were right behind it in the gantry, and he's hit it so well. It's that kind of knuckleball strike where he's just got right under it, and Joseph Anang's put up his left hand, and it's moved from his left hand to his right hand in the air, and he still manages to get it and flick it over the bar. It's just an incredible save, and at a really important time as well, because Rovers are right back in the game then if that goes in. And those are the saves that bring you on, and I kind of forgotten about a little bit because of the scoreline, but yeah, he's just been so good. of late. He struggled a little bit when he first came back in, but everyone knew from his first spell at the club what he was capable of, and he's starting to show that again. And obviously it helps having Gravosty back at centre back and Soyberg back at a right back as well. A little bit of consistency in that back four again.
Yeah, and then of course Jake Mulroney, who was outstanding, a couple of goals in that game, Keith. And I think it's been said and well documented, Stephen Kenny loves his wingers, but also what we're looking at as a winger sort of coming off the wing when the ball's on the other side with El Bizzetti, and doing, I think what we kind of said about Derry City, maybe the goal contributions from either wing haven't been great for them this season, but certainly for Mulroney and El Bizzetti, they've been very productive. But there's a role I think that Mason Melia plays in the build up to the second goal, the Pat score, that maybe gets lost in it as well, because it's just at the very start of the passage of play. Just how he turned Pico Lopez was absolutely brilliant. When you look at I don't think we even need to state what age he is at the moment, but also the fact that Pico is a brilliant defender, internationally experienced, and one of the best defenders in the league, and he just gets turned.
Yeah, it was really noticeable. When I seen it, I looked and went, that was Lopez. It really did take me back. And I don't remember off the top of my head I'd seen a lot of people do that to him. And when you've got a 17-year-old like Mason turning you, and his distribution when he turns people like that, Raf, so many people have the talent, they do it, but then the next touch will be wrong, or they'll make the wrong decision with the pass, or they'll fire a shot off, and you think you're all over the place. Your mind is going a million miles an hour. With Mason, you get the impression that he's nice and calm. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's going to turn you, then he's going to lay it off and get himself into the box. I spoke about Mason a million times. His ceiling is so high. Yeah, he was a joy to walk with while I was in the building with Pat's under 17s. He's a really, really talented boy, very, very hungry to get to the top of the sport. And yeah, he can be absolutely anything he wants. But what you're saying about the wingers, about El Bizzetti, Mulroney, it's really, really good when one winger crosses, the opposite winger comes in and makes sure it doesn't come out the end of the box. Very, very simplistic stuff, Raf. And people would say, isn't it great Stephen Kenny is doing this? This has been going on for years and years and years. Sam Allardyce had me doing this at Blackburn 15 years ago when Pomo would come in, and when the opposite winger is crossing, get inside the width of the goalpost, because if you're outside the width of the goalpost there, chances are you might pick the ball back up, but you're just going to recycle it. If you're inside the goalpost, the percentage of you scoring goals or getting a strike off from there, they increase greatly. So the fact that Mulroney comes in there, the fact that El Bizzetti comes in on the other side, it's just getting people in the right areas in the box, knowing that a ball is going to come in. But the one thing you can do now with St Pat's, if you give the ball to Mulroney, if you're Mason and you give the ball out to the wing, you don't need to go and help them. You don't need to go and get involved. Go and get yourself into the box, because the delivery is coming. And when you've got wingers like that, you just get into the box and you know the service is going to come. I'm a big, big fan of Mulroney. He can blow hot and cold at times, but since El Bizzetti and Stephen Kenny in particular has come into the building, he's been really, really good. Both wingers have been excellent. Brandon Kavanagh is another one who's got so much better under Stephen Kenny. And you could probably throw even Chris Forrester into that as well. The start of the season, performances weren't great. His stats in terms of goals, assists, nowhere near the numbers you'd expect from a Chris Forrester. But the last probably 8 weeks or so, as we started Europe, Chris has just got better and better. He seems to have got fitter and got that bit between his teeth again. So not only is Stephen Kenny improving the younger players, he's improving the older players as well. So yeah, I keep saying this. I can't wait for next season. As a Pats fan, I just cannot wait. I hope we go and we nick Europe this season, but my God, next season is going to be a mouth-watering prospect for St Pat's fans.
Yeah, and Pat's currently top of the form table. At the bottom of it and bottom of the actual table as well, of course, is Dundalk after a 2-0 defeat to Bohemians. And even looking at the goals, Barry, I mean, Dundalk actually played well in patches, it seems, and they threatened from set pieces against Bows, but then it's exactly the opposite what happens in the second half, that Bows are the ones that get to capitalise on set pieces.
Yeah, and that always seems to happen when you're bottom of the league. The luck just doesn't go your way, and it hasn't gone their way of late. And that was just kind of encapsulated by Friday night, as you said. They played really well in spells in the first half, and then just conceded 2 really sloppy goals. And I just think that's probably the nail in the coffin for them in terms of getting relegated, if they weren't going to be anyway. And you just have to wonder now whether the ownership there will consider maybe it's time to put them into that examinership into SCARP and get that process sorted now, just in case they can't get to the end of the season, and then you're looking at a points deduction next season. So could you get into that process now, get it done early, and try and regroup and start planning for life in the first division? Hopefully still have a club to be in the first division, because it's still not guaranteed yet, but it's looking more likely now that that's where it's going to be.
Yeah, I think as the new investors have said, like things still look very bleak, despite the worst case scenario in the immediate sense having been pushed back a little bit. But I suppose Galway United and Waterford then, Keith, Galway came from behind to win 2-1, and this was obviously a game between the clubs that got promoted this season, who've both been very impressive. But Waterford have dropped off a little bit, whereas Galway seem to have a bit of momentum, and even a European dream remains alive there. But at the same time, they could have been easily 2-0 down before they sparked their own turnaround.
Yeah, it was a topsy-turvy game. Could have really went either way. And looking at the two teams, you'd expect there's a little bit of a clash of styles. You think Waterford like to get the ball on the wings, like to get Hammond on the ball and keep him in the box, create chance for him. Whereas Galway as well will get the ball out wide, but it's going out wide with a means to an end to come into the box. They will ring the box. David Hurley in particular will go up there and they'll pick up second balls. And you're saying that Waterford have maybe lost that little bit of momentum. I agree with you, Raf, and I do think their style of play is a harder style of play to implement. They've been brilliant all season, but there's a little bit more football based, and every now and then you're going to turn up and your football is just not of a standard. It happens to everybody. It happens to people at the top end of the sport. So every now and then you're not going to be 100%. But if you're in a Galway dressing room where you're not fully reliant on your talent, it's more about working hard, getting the ball into good areas, putting people under pressure and picking up on their mistakes rather than your good play. I think that's more sustainable for a club like Galway rather than a Waterford who thinks, right, we need to get the ball down and play. Every now and then that's just not going to click, and you have to have more strings to your bow. Whereas Galway, you know what you're getting. It's going to be physical battle. It's going to be high tempo. It's going to be put into areas where you're going to be asked difficult questions. Barry will know as a goalkeeper, there's going to be balls coming into those areas. Do I come? Do I not? Does we centre half headed? There's going to be clashes. So it's a hard team to play against Galway. But look, Waterford, can you really have a pop at either of these teams if they don't win a game from now till the end of the season? I mean, the number one remit for both clubs coming into the league, stay in the league. And they've done that comfortably, really, really comfortably, Raf. So anything from now on is a bonus. If either of them can stick into it and get European football, John Caulfield and Keith Long should be given the freedom of the city, because nobody's seeing that coming. It's been wonderful, wonderful stuff from both sets of club, and a good game. Now, you looking at that game on paper, Raf, you're probably thinking, oh, it's not the most intriguing thing to watch. It's a very good game of football. I thought there was really good moments in it, and I enjoyed it. So, yeah, more power to the two clubs. Brilliant stuff this season from both of them.
Yeah, and just a reminder, Shells against Pats live on RT2 and the RT Player tonight from 7 o'clock, kick-off at 7:15 at Tolka Park. Then on Friday, Galway are playing Dundalk. That's 7:45 p.m. kick-off. And then on Sunday, as mentioned earlier, Shamrock Rovers against Shells. That's 5:45 kick-off at Tallaght Stadium. And now, of course, it's a big weekend in the FAI Cup as well, with the semi-finals, both matches live on RT2 and the RT Player, with Bows against Derry City on Friday at 7:45, and then Sunday it is Drogheda United against Wexford, so that's an afternoon kickoff. That is 10-3 when that gets underway. But first, Bows against Derry, Barry, and the head-to-head this season so far, Bows beat Derry 2-1 in March, and then Derry got their revenge with a 1-0 win over Bows in May, and then Derry won again 2-1 away from home in June, and they meet one more time in the league on the 11th of October, which is 1 week exactly after this upcoming semi-final. How do you see this one going? Because it is kind of intriguing. Derry City are, as we've said already, sort of very inconsistent in the league, but they did win the cup a couple of years ago, so they do have that sort of muscle memory. Bows have been to a couple of finals in the last 3 seasons and come up short in both of those, and also their league form has been a bit all over the place.
Yeah, and the way the league is going at the moment, you wouldn't be surprised if Bows go and win this cup, and that fourth place everyone's fighting for at the moment and for the European spot is gone. That's the way the league is kind of going at the moment. And as you said, they both have pedigree of late in the league. Bows have been in the last couple of finals, and Derry have gone and won it against Shells in the final as well. But I think the pressure is on Derry, I think, really, for this game, because I don't know, like, are they going to put up that title challenge into the final day? This can really ease some pressure if Rory Higgins goes there and gets a win, and you've got a final to look forward to, because it's such a massive thing for a club like Derry to bring down a huge amount of supporters, and could just ease it. It eased that pressure the last time. There was a little bit of pressure on them when they weren't doing so well in the league, and they might need that little outlet again. And for Bows, they just really need something to galvanise behind, because they've had a couple of good results against Shamrock Rovers, but bar that, they were expected to go win in Dundalk, and bar that, they've had nothing to really cheer about. So if they had a cup final on the horizon, that would be huge. And on form at the moment, you wouldn't fancy either of these teams to go and beat what will probably be Drogheda in the other semi-final. But listen, there's been goals in the last couple of games between these two teams, so you'd expect more on Friday.
Yeah, because Drogheda, I mean, their front two, we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier on, Keith. I mean, but Douglas James Taylor and France Piero were brilliant against Derry City on Friday night. And Wexford, as a first division team, that's the one area they're probably going to have to deal with first. And before even, the likes of Darren Markey and other threats that Drogheda United have. But I remember listening to Rory Higgins just before that game on Friday, and he was asked about that front two. And I think there probably was a little bit of a worry how they're going to deal with them. As we found out, it was a very difficult task to pin down both Douglas James Taylor and Piero, who ended up scoring the goals. But that's a really tall order for Wexford to sort of deal with on that side of it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Wexford go about it, because, as you say, Raf, you can go and try and think, right, we won't let Drogheda play out from the back, we'll press all over. Drogheda will be happy enough just to click one up to the two front boys and say, they'll go from there. And if you sit off and say, well, we're not going to give you the big ball, we're going to get round the two big lads and not, compete from there, then Drogheda will try and play through you. Just like you say, just like Darren Markey in the middle of the pitch, Farrell as well in there can make things happen. So Drogheda can go about this a few different ways. But look, I think if you're Wexford, you just go and you go and enjoy yourself. They're there on merit. They beat Treaty, beat Ballyfermot and Wayside Celtic to get here. Not the toughest of opposition, but they ended up scoring 10 goals in those 3 games. So Wexford will be thinking, we have goals in us, we will score a couple of goals. But as you say, if that front two with Drogheda, they're such a physical handful. They can run the channels. They're not bad finishers if they get half a chance as well. And I'm saying that Wexford have scored 10 goals in their 3 games. Drogheda have scored 15 in their 3s. I know 9 of them came in the one game, but they've been scoring goals in the FAI Cup as well, and managed to beat Dundalk in the last round, which is the Loud Derby, which was a big one. So yeah, look, I think Drogheda are obviously favourites in that one, but if I do watch the game and Wexford end up winning it at 1-0, you wouldn't be totally baffled by it. Wexford had a good strong team with decent players, and as you say, they're up against it, Raf, but if they can soak up a bit of pressure and go from back to front quickly, there's no reason they can't get the win there either.
Yeah, and Wexford have had one season in the Premier Division back in 2016, but I think getting to a FAI Cup final will probably be the biggest day in their what is a relatively short history of the club, Barry. But they have, as Keith said there, they have some talents themselves. I mean, their front three, they play 4-3-3 most of the time, but their front three between Mikey Rowe, Thomas Alua and Aaron Dobbs, 29 goals between them this season, and then Conor Livingston sort of backing them up in midfield as well. They do have threats to pull off a potential shock here if needs be.
Yeah, they do. And Aaron Dobbs is probably the biggest finisher of the lot of them. I would have saw him years ago when he was coming through the Rovers Academy, and he was going to be the next big thing. I think Gary Twigg was still around at the time or before. He was that kind of mould, just a goal scorer. But again, he's bagged goals again, and they're really offensive football. They play some really good stuff. And you marry that with Wexford also getting that allocation from the government as well towards a new stadium, and you got that kind of sort of momentum about getting to a cup final, and then suddenly you've got a stadium on the horizon. It'd be great for the area to go and build it up down there as well. And as Keith said, you've got a great chance. It's a one-off game, semi-final. Anything can happen in these games, and it's just go and enjoy it and try and get something from it.
Yeah, and of course they're coming in off the back of a little bit of momentum as well. They beat UCD 2-0 as well, which will help their playoff push in the first division. So they're 4th at the moment on 50 points, just one behind Athlone, who are on 51. UCD are on 53, and then Bray Wanderers occupying the last position there in terms of playoff positions on 49, 4 ahead of Finn Harps. But we're going to chat to former Ireland international Méabh De Búrca now about the Women's Premier Division, which saw the race to the top titan with 2 games to go. But first, let's listen to Shelbourne manager Owen Weirin, whose team came into the weekend 5 points adrift of leaders Athlone Town, who themselves could have won the league on Saturday if results had gone their way.
Owen, listen, congratulations. You came and did what you had to do. You won that game. A tough encounter. Yeah, we knew it would be. Two teams with so much to play for at this stage of the season, and we've been saying that the last few weeks that we still believe that there's something there for us, but we can only control what we can control, and if the results go our way, then we want to be there to capitalise on it. So let's see what happens tonight. Hopefully a result goes in our way, but as you said, we took care of business today, and that was the most important thing.
Really impressive start. Big game later on, as you said, so it's a little bit of wait and see.
Yeah, that's all we can do. We've spoken about that many times over the last few weeks. These are a group of players that are used to winning games, and are ultra competitive, and regardless of what happens in other games, we want to win our games and make sure that we're going into a cup final at the end of the year, and we want to be going in with momentum to that as also.
So that is Shelbourne manager Owen Weir speaking to Angelina Nugent after their 1-0 win over Galway United, but before Athlone Town played Shamrock Rovers, and it means that with 2 games to go, Athlone lead by 3 points at the top of the table, but Shells have the goal difference advantage, and joined now by Méabh De Búrca. We talk about finally poised, I suppose, but the way it turned out at the weekend, when Athlone could have had everything done and dusted, it does leave everything, at least from a neutral point of view, still quite exciting for the last couple of games.
Yeah, so exciting. Like, this has happened now for a good few years in the league. It always seems to be a few teams just going for it at the end, and yeah, it kind of went, I suppose, with 3 teams in it before the weekend. Now we're really down to 2, Athlone and Chaz, like you said, with Galway. Just their loss really kind of puts them out of the race, really. But yeah, as a neutral, watching on, people are going to be really enthralled by it, and I think it's kind of shaping up for a really exciting next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and Kate Mooney scored the winner on 12 minutes, or what proved to be the winner, against Galway for Shells. And where would Shells be without her? Like, when you look at the amount of goals she scored the last while, I think it's 7 goals in her last 5 games in the league and cup.
Yeah, she's really kind of taken the league alight since she's come back, and since the mid-season break, she's really been such a live wire for Shaz. And like I said, I think she's a big part of their kind of reason for their success. And yeah, she took her goal. It was kind of a poacher's finish, really, at the weekend against Galway, and she actually scored another one that was flagged offside too. But Shaz were definitely, they really dominated that first half. They were so dominant. They really took control of the game, and Galway got back into it a little bit, did try to create stuff in the second half, but they couldn't get the goal. And really they needed 2 goals, because it was a kind of winner takes all. If that was a draw, it would have kind of almost seen them both out of the title race. So from Shell's perspectives, they kind of live to fight another day, but like I said, they're just kind of chasing Athlone, really, it's Atlone's league to lose, I think, at this stage.
Yeah, and which means it was kind of, I suppose, psychologically interesting when Atlone's game against Shamrock Rovers then kicked off, knowing at that stage that they couldn't win the league on the night. And then when Anya O'Gorman put Shamrock Rovers 1-0 up, that's quite an interesting space to be, I suppose, from an Athlone point of view. We know they did fight back and they got a point out of it, but it's an interesting space to be mentally, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because obviously they would have been following the game beforehand with a lot of interest, and knowing that there was a possibility they could have actually won the whole league on Saturday. But yeah, they managed to show resolve. I suppose it is difficult when you go down early, and then they did come back, and then there was this 90 seconds of madness, really, in the game as well towards the end, where there was 2 goals in less than 2 minutes. So it was another kind of exciting game, and Maddie Gibson's free kick as well was definitely a highlight. It was so well hit. It seems to be always 1 or 2 crackers at most weekends in the Women's League anyway.
Yeah, and when you look at the fact they did get a point, obviously, because Joy Ralph scores just after that Gibson free kick, do you look at it as a good point for Athlone in the circumstances where they are at in the league?
Well, it's definitely a point gained, as in it's a point closer to the title, but I think they would have been disappointed. They would have had it down on paper as a game that they would have wanted to have won. And yeah, I suppose they were so elated after that goal and the manner it went in, and then just to concede straight away. They always do say you're the most vulnerable as a team right after you've scored. So that proved to be the case, definitely, because in fairness to Joy Ralph, she took her goal really well, and Shamrock Rovers fought back after they've obviously had a very difficult season. So they've kind of been picking off a few points here and there, and they're definitely having a say, with the teams at the top of the table. They're showing they can kind of compete with anyone.
Yeah, and then when we look at what's remaining, so Athlone have Bowes at home and then Wexford away, and then Shells have Peamount at home and Shamrock Rovers away. Obviously, Athlone are the driving seat. They've got the points. Shells do have the goal difference advantage, but I would imagine it's better to be in Athlone's position because you have the points on the board. But at the same time, when you look at the fixtures, which way are you kind of leaning? I know it's kind of difficult. Football teaches us that you can't look at matches on paper and sort of try and predict where it goes. But are you kind of still leaning towards Athlone just with where they're at and the fixtures?
I think so. I mean, like I said, they Bowes up next, and again, on paper it should be a game they won, but there a few weeks ago, Bowes actually ended up drawing with Shells on a game that was on TG Carroll, again a game that we would have expected Shells to win. So yeah, it is really tight to call, and we saw it in 21 when Peamount only had to get a point out of their last two games to seal the title, and they didn't get any points. So it's definitely is, like I said, Athlone are in the driving seat, and really if they can get the job, I think they should be able to get the job done, but it's going to be a difficult, it's not going to be easy for them because they know that they haven't won the league before, so I think that's kind of possibly going against them in that Shells have plenty of experience. They know how to win and they've done it before. So and obviously the two of them then will face off in the women's FAI final too. So it's another kind of twist to the story, I suppose.
Yeah, and that'll be 20th of October, and we'll have it on RT2 and the RT Player. Now, Galway United, as you mentioned as well, have just, I suppose, fallen out of it. Everything but mathematically, it seems. I think 6 points down. Their goal difference is pretty good as well, but it would take an almighty stumble from both Athlone and Shells to give them any chance of coming back into it. But let's listen to their manager, Phil Trill, who was also speaking to Angelina Nugent after that defeat to Shelburne at the weekend.
Even today, I felt we probably deserved something out of the game. It'll hurt, but it also proves how close we are. So we have another game next week. We have to bounce back very quickly, and that's the beauty of football. We just get on with it again,
And lots to build on, as you alluded to in that first interview that we did earlier. There's lots to build on here within the club.
There's loads. Again, massive crowd again today, and like again retaining another trophy. And I can't say this enough, like, of how young the group is. Like, such a young group. They're going to be better. Like, they're going to be better for this experience in terms of. They know now what it feels to be this close. They've never been this close. They know now what it feels to be this close. So that's where we are. And look, please God, we'll keep going, and we'll keep our head up for next season, and more importantly for the next 2 weeks, and just keep going.
All right, so Phil Trill there, and I know, Méabh, you keep a close eye on things in your home county. They came very close this year, and the progress the club has made over the last couple of years has been immense. What are they missing, as you feel, overall, just in terms of trying to get to that point where they're getting over the line in the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's difficult to pinpoint. Just Shells, I think, seems to be their nearly bogey team or something, because they've lost 3 times to Shells at the 3 times they played them this season, and it was hard to call. I think Shells were happy enough to go. They had 3 at the back, so they were happy enough just to marshal Galway's 2 forwards, and maybe had they been able to threaten a bit more in behind in the corners, maybe Galway might have had a bit more success with it. But they've been, like I said, that the stepping stones are all in place, foundations are in place. Obviously, the foundations before it with Galway WFC and all the work that was put in there really kind of allowed then Galway United to kind of hit the ground running when they entered the league, and I think they're very close. It's just maybe a little bit more experience. Obviously, they have the likes of Julianne Russell and Lindsay McKee there, but aside from those two, the team is extremely young, and this experience this year been so close will have definitely benefited them, and I think next year then they will try to push on and hopefully have a good run in the FAI Cup and again in the league. But obviously retaining the All Ireland Cup will definitely have kind of given them that little bit of confidence as well.
Yeah, and I suppose speaking of experience as well, Katie McCabe, obviously for Arsenal, has a huge amount of experience playing in the Champions League. Arsenal back there again with the draw for the group stages made last week, but also Celtic's qualification for the group stage for the very first time. That means we're going to have a couple more Irish players involved. Caitlin Hayes, of course, who's a linchpin at the back for Ireland in the last year or two. She's going to be playing, but also Saoirse Noonan, whose form has been brilliant since she's gone over there.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, like I said, it's great to see Caitlin Hayes there. She has been there for quite a while and has that kind of she's come into the Irish team and been really kind of a seamless addition in the back. She's really added to our defensive side, but it's great to see Saoirse, who has obviously been out of the last few Ireland squads, and has made the brave move to go to Celtic, and she's scoring a lot of goals, a hat trick in the Champions League. You can't really, that's as good as it gets really, and it's great to see them qualifying for the group stages, because at times they mightn't have that many competitive games, and the Scottish League isn't the most competitive, on paper. So at least when they're competing now with the Champions League with the top teams in the Champions League, it's going to be really good for them, and hopefully bring on their game as well. And like you said, Katie McCabe seems to have hit the ground running this season. She's really flying it. I think you can see just in her performances so far, like she's been doing very well for Arsenal.
Yeah, and 6 goals in 5 games for Saoirse Noonan there for Celtic. So she's obviously in brilliant form. In terms of what playing in Europe does in terms of bringing you on, I might cast your mind back to, I think, the 2008-09 season when you were there with Galway WFC in the first qualifying round of what was the precursor to the now Champions League, so the UEFA Women's Cup. And I'm just looking at the group there. You had Zurich, you had Universitet Vitebsk from Belarus, and then SFK Sarajevo from Bosnia. The tournament itself was taking place in Sarajevo. What's your memories of that, and how much of a boost it was, I suppose, for yourself in terms of bringing on your own career and your own experience of the game?
Yeah, it was great. At the time, I think I was just 20 when we were playing in it. So it was a really kind of pivotal time for me. I was just breaking in, with the senior Irish team as well at the time. And it was great because we had won the FAI Cup, and that was back in the day, that was how you qualified for the Champions League. Whereas now, obviously, it's the winner of the league that gets through. But we had a great win in that. And then it was really, really positive to go over. We played, like I said, in Bosnia, and it was just a great experience because it kind of showed us, I suppose, the levels that we had to get to as well. At that time, the Women's National League wasn't in place, so it was hard because when you come back, all you had was the cup competitions really. But now I think it's really good for the likes of Mount, who obviously just competed in it, and they can bring that experience then back to the league as well. And I think it's really important because, like I said, just playing against a higher level of opposition really brings on your game individually and as a team as well.
Yeah, we're speaking on the last day of September, and obviously October has been marked on the calendar in terms of the international team as well. The Republic of Ireland women's playing Georgia in a playoff on the 25th of October. But obviously, I think without being disrespectful to Georgia, but I think the eyes are always focused on what's next in the next playoff game, given that the last time the teams met, I think, was 20-0 aggregate in terms of the World Cup qualifying group. In terms of the Irish squad, we're still a few weeks away, but what's the shape you're expecting of it? The core, I imagine, will be the exact same, but do you expect any little surprises in terms of form coming into it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it'll be a lot of the same, really. But I'd imagine Saoirse Noonan will definitely have given herself, like we just said, a really good chance to have gotten into, at least the extended squad there. There's the likes of Ellen Dolan in the Women's National League as well. I think she's on 8 goals this season. She's pushing for that top goal scorer spot. Obviously, Jenna Slattery's on 9 at the moment, but I think obviously I would expect to see Julianne back in as well after her fine form in the last camp as well, and she's still flying it in the league. So I think it'll be a lot of the same. We might see 1 or 2 maybe potentially from the Women's Premier Division, but otherwise I think it'll be a lot of the same. Like you said, it should be I mean, like you said, 9-0 and 11-0 the last time we played them. We really expect to get through that and then push on for the second playoff. And it's really exciting to see how close we can get and how close we are to getting to Euros. And it's a huge thing really, because qualifying obviously for the first major tournament is a huge step, but it's all about really building on that. And qualification for next summer's Euros would really do that, and would kind of, I think, would bring a lot of momentum to the game as well, just given that it's on in Switzerland. We see a lot more, I think, fans going over too. A lot of people couldn't make the trip to Australia, so I think it'd be a huge boost to the women's football in Ireland.
Yeah, and certainly Irish fans do travel. I did see that in Paris because that was only a stone's throw away for the Olympics. I think tricolours everywhere. But in terms of the wider implications for the game as well, a couple of weeks ago you were on with Anthony Pine on this podcast talking about the Emerging Talent Programme, which has been scrapped, and you came through that programme yourself, as did many Irish players at the time, and it was the regionalisation of it. I think was the key thing with the centres in different parts of the country. The move and plan is to try and empower LOI clubs in terms of the academy system. But would you have any concerns in terms of the need to keep it as regionalised as possible and to ensure that it is, whatever funding does go out, that it is spread out around the country?
Yeah, I definitely be more in favour of the regional centres, just because you're getting the higher the top kind of players all training together, whereas when it's the League of Ireland clubs, it mightn't be as much like that. But I think the funding side of it is the important thing as well. I think there needs to be enough funding given to it just to allow the teams to be able to kind of to bring in the players and give them the level of the training that they need. But yeah, it's definitely still disappointing not to have the regional based centres rather than just the League of Ireland clubs, because even in Dublin alone, like if you could have one centre there that would be the top players and they'd be playing and training with each other, the real cream of the crop, I suppose, that would really develop them, because those are the players, I suppose, that program is targeting. It's the players that are going to become elite players, and obviously there's great work being done at grassroots levels to increase participation levels, and that's a whole other side of it. But I suppose with this program, it really is the elite players that you'd be looking at.
All right, well, we'll see where that goes. Obviously, I think as Mark Cannon, the director of football, has said, they're just waiting to see how much and how much they do get by the end of this year, obviously with the budget also coming up. But Méabh De Búrca, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, so as Méabh De Búrca discussed there, it was the sort of the scrapping of the Emerging Talent Programme, which I think was being discussed a couple of weeks ago, Barry, when you were last on the podcast. And of course, the conversation has moved on to the funding of LOI academies, and that's something the director of football of the FAI, Mark Cannon, was talking about. So let's just listen to him first, and we'll discuss after.
But yeah, we do need investment. We're having good, positive conversations with the government. They've got a good understanding of what we're trying to do to develop players between those ages of 14 up into the senior end of the game. So we're positive and optimistic about that investment coming our way to try and supercharge the development of young Irish players, both boys and girls.
So that's Mark Cannon there, and he said also by the end of the year the FAI will know if they'll get the desired funding from government for those LOI academies. However, he admitted that they had missed the opportunity to try to secure funding via the Brexit Adjustment Reserve, and that's something reported in the Irish Independent. Now, they are ideally looking for around 10 million per year to cover the cost in terms of supercharging these LOI academies and pushing things on. And Callum says that would transform player development in academies in this country. Now, the other potential source of funding, which is sort of a separate matter, but the betting levy as another potential source of funding that may be looked at in the future, given it largely goes to horse and greyhound racing. And Barry, I suppose with the chopping of the Emerging Talent Programme, and I suppose coupled with Brexit as well, the onus really is on the LOI to take the lead and bring in true talent. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty of how, a 10 million is an aspirational figure, but how should that be broken down in terms of how that is actually funded on the ground itself within an academy setup?
Well, I think you've got to trust the clubs, because I'm not sure you can trust the FAI. That statement alone about missing that the Brexit readjustment fund, it's just incredible. We were looking at this. I was speaking to Aidan O'Riordan about it a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying this was on the horizon, that there was potentially 800 million there for Ireland to go and look at and to be divvied up, and people who've been affected mostly by Brexit. And I think the Irish football has been pillaged basically by English teams for God knows how many years, and this was a real chance to go and get something from that pot. And I know Will Clark and Mark Scanlon have gone directly to the EU to seek funding, but like, this was a fund that, you look at what they've done with that money. The government have given back 150 million of that potential fund back to the EU fund for to counter against Russian oil. Like, that's basically where the money's gone. Like, you're looking at that, and where's the 800 million gone in terms of League of Ireland clubs? Because they're looking for 10 million a year, but that's probably aspiration, because I don't think that the government is going to trust them with that sort of money the way it is at the moment. And just listening to Pascal O'Donoghue yesterday, and he was talking about being in his office and how he's looking forward to the budget, and then he's like, I'm missing the Arsenal, or I'm missing the Manchester United and Spurs game. Like, just read the room a little bit, you know. This Irish club's begging for money here from the government. The same with Kieran Malooly, who's over there speaking about funding and how we can develop players better to send them off to England. There's no talk about keeping them here and making the league better here and making the academies better. So where's that money going to go if it does get pumped into Irish football? I think you've got to trust the academies better with it, because the people within Irish football, the likes of Will Clark, Mark Scanlon, who know this league inside out, they're the ones the money should go to this side of football. Like, it's been really good when you look at in terms of what the funding's be given in the infrastructure thing. Munster football got 150 grand, Wexford 300 grand, Sligo, Kerry, Dundalk have all got money from it. But when you look at the Dundalk money, that's 500 grand they've got. That's gone immediately on the lights and the pitch. Stadium is still going to be horrendous. Like, it's still going to be so bad for away supporters to go and see a game there, and that's where you're looking to build up the league, is by infrastructure and having TV money from people going in there and wanting to put on games in those stadiums, and they're just not being able to do that at the moment. And that filtering down into the academies as well in terms of money. That's not, teams have to be self-sufficient, but they've got to give them a leg up to give them a chance to be self-sufficient.
Yeah, and this is something we talked about in terms of the number of academies within the country. Then also the other question, the number of full-time coaches within the country, and how do you spread that out, and exactly how do you invest in people at the same time? We spoke to Graham Garland about it on the pod back in April, and he pointed out that Portugal has just 7 full-time academies, but with 300 coaches. And then as of April, we had, if you're talking about an LOI academy set of 24 academies, essentially with 10 full-time coaches spread over that. Presently, if we look at Croatia's 190 coaches to 10 academies. So there is Graham was talking about the idea of maybe streamlining it to make it a lot more focused, but also, Keith, there's the question of keeping it like geographically well spread, which was something that, for whatever the pros and cons of the emerging talent program were, the fact that there were regional centres meant there was a kind of geographical spread that covers the country, and that's sort of important going forward as well.
Yeah, it's very important. I done me coaching badge up the north, and they were talking us through their structure up there, and I think they've got about 3 or 4 academies just up the north alone, and all the best players from around the north, they will go to whichever one is closest to them, and they'll get that technique work, and they'll polish them up that little bit before they go on to proper men's football, or proper men's or women's football. So, yeah, look, it's dire straits, Raf. It really is. I've been in with Pat's 17s, and, you know, Pats are probably one of the better teams with Shamrock Rovers, who have the facilities, who have the pitches, but, you know, they don't have a place to call their own. They train out in Blanche IT, the academy teams, that is, for St Pat's. And look, our role in all of this has changed over the last couple of years with Brexit coming in. You know, where our role has changed. We have to get these lads technically ready. We need to get them physically ready to go and play, you know, first team football. And it's not as easy now. I mean, I look at the likes of Benny. Benny's probably one of our best players in the Irish team right now. But he's so technically raw, it's unbelievable. And it's because his talent got him into the first team in Ireland. Then he jumped a couple of levels. He never had that 3 or 4 years in an academy where you just say, we're going to polish you up. And it's a necessity. It's absolutely a necessity, especially if, you know, this modern football now, everybody has to be comfortable on the ball. Everybody has to be able to move it quickly. If you're not technically gifted, you can't do that. And okay, we're all over the place, Rafa. You know, with the amount of full-time staff we have in academies, with the amount of pitches we have, we just don't have what we need. And, you know, 10 million is a great number, but, you know, you're really only scratching the surface, and no amount of money is going to change things overnight. It's going to be a long haul to get this sorted, but it's something that we need to do, and we need to start on this road very, very quickly, because, as I say, it's not going to be done overnight.
Yeah, and Ben is one of the Irish in action on the other side of the Irish Sea, of course, at the weekend as well, playing for Ipswich and starting for them as well. Wasn't among the goal scorers, though. The Irish goals at the weekend, some of the main ones anyway, across the water. Adam Ida for Celtic, of course, at the weekend. Vessi Ebisele got his first goal for Watford. Callum Robinson also on target for Cardiff. Jason Knight with a brilliant header for Bristol City at Swansea. And then Troy Parrott, a product of the Emerging Talent Programme himself, continuing his goal scoring for AZ Alkmaar. And We talked about him quite in detail last week anyway, but that's his 6th goal in all competitions for them, 5th in the league, to add to that 4 that he got in one game against Heerenveen. And then Aaron Connolly didn't play at the weekend. He's obviously just signed for Sunderland, and last season he had a pretty solid season before injuries kind of took hold, with 8 goals in 28 games for Hull, and then he was left without a club until, of course, Sunderland came in for him. But he's 24 years old, and Keith, I was listening to you on Game On actually during the week. You were talking about Troy Parrott as a 22-year-old. You know, that's where sort of the excuses kind of stop at that age, and you need to be pushing on. Aaron Connolly, there's definitely ability in there, and he's shown it in patches throughout his career. But at 24, he does need to find somewhere that's stable and kind of kick on. And Hull could have been that, but of course, the opportunity to stay there never really came on. But Sunderland seems like a very good level for him, because he has tried the thing of going up to Venezia and it didn't quite work out.
Yeah, Sunderland seems like a good match for him. The one thing I would say to Aaron is, you know, we were saying he had a solid season last season before these injuries came in. The fact that somebody didn't pick him up straight away means he has a reputation within football, because if you're looking at him on paper, you think, yeah, good player, get him in, no problem. The fact that people were a little bit gun-shy and think, well, let's hang fire here. But that seems to have turned the corner. But he's 24 now, Raf. He needs to get into the Sunderland team, number one. He needs to. I'm hearing that he's super, super fit at the minute, which is what you always want to hear. So he just needs to break in there, start playing football. And look, it's probably a long way away. I'm getting back into the Irish team, given how, you know, we're talking about Evan Ferguson, Adam Idah scoring goals, Troy Parrott scoring goals, Sammy Schmoddick's playing in the Premier League, or Benny in the Premier League as well. So he's probably knocked down that list a bit, but don't worry about that. Just get yourself into that Sunderland team and start playing football. And, you know, that light that was ignited when you come on in the Premier League all those years ago, everybody in Ireland stood up and thought, Aaron Connolly, he could be the one. Go and give us that again, because we're calling out for any sort of stretch of games, couple of goals over there, and people will be clamouring for you to get back into that Irish team. So get your head down, work hard. It gets a second to earn your reputation, but a lifetime to lose. I'm very aware of that myself. So get your head down, work hard, and, you know, start scoring goals, start playing football, and all that sort of stuff will look after itself.
Yeah, and the Conference League isn't the only thing that's on also this week in terms of European football. It's another Champions League week. Liverpool v Bologna live on RT2 and the RT Player on Wednesday from 7:30. But Barry, at the weekend, I mean, Liverpool didn't look all that convincing against what is a very, very poor Wolves side. And although maybe the thing that in terms of Bologna were brilliant last season in Serie A, but they're outside the top 10 in Serie A this very early juncture this season, and also dealing with life after Thiago Motta, who seems to have made a really good start to life as the head coach of Juventus. But the way it looks anyway, I think Liverpool's experience probably is the thing they're going to be leaning on this week. And obviously they've started the Champions League brilliantly against another Italian side in AC Milan a couple of weeks ago. So there'll be heavy favourites coming into this, but there will be little concerns about their form, at least based on the weekend.
Yeah, it's been interesting how Arne Slot's gone about things. It was after Jurgen Klopp's heavy metal football. This is kind of more reserved. It's more orchestral, really, in the way he's gone about things. Everyone has a real spot in it and jobs to do within that system. And you just look at the way they're playing at the moment. Luis Diaz is probably the one that's benefited most from him coming in. He's talked already about having one-on-one sessions with him about conserving energy and making the right runs. He's cut his runs down. I was looking at his stats during the week, from 40 runs the game to just over 20. And he's now got the second highest stats in terms of running with the ball that lead to goals. So like that sort of stuff, that he's really just kind of maximised output for what Liverpool are doing at the moment. The days are gone of that football of Mane and Firmino and Salah running at teams and conceding loads of goals. Like last season, they only had 10 clean sheets in the season. They have 4 already. Like, so that's the difference that Slot's making. They're much more much more tight at the back, really, for Liverpool. But going forward, they still have that power to go and really hurt teams. They still have that quality in Salah, and they'll bring that. We saw that in glimpses in Europe, but it's just a bit of a slow burner at the moment. But you look at where they are on the table and they're top.
Yeah, whereas Wolves are right at the bottom, and Matt Doherty would have started the first 2 games this season because Nelson Semedo was out, but he's been benched for the last 2 for Wolves, Keith, and the 2 games in between that as well. He only played a combined 28 minutes in the league. It's a little bit I suppose his form in the last international break, and I think there would have been a lot of focus and spotlight on him based on the second goal that Greece scored and the not tracking back greatly. But his place within not so much the Ireland squad, I think we'd still expect him to be called up, but his place within the Ireland team, surely, do you see it as somewhat under threat? I know Seamus Coleman is out at the moment, but just with the form and where he's at club level?
Yeah, possibly. I think he's not put himself, but he's in a place now where if he does get dropped out of the Irish team, he can't really have any complaints, because the number one remit for playing for your country is you need to be playing for your club. And I know there's exceptions to the rule every now and then. A superstar is not playing and they play regardless. But yeah, look, Matt hasn't been. He come under the spotlight, as you say, Raf. And again, I speak about fans, players. We can understand when somebody misplaces a pass or his touch is not right. But seeing something develop and not deciding I'm not going to run, I'm just not going to do it. And he was only on the pitch, so them sort of things just really great on people. And I'm never one for body language. I think body language can be very misreading at times. But when Matt doesn't do the hard yards, when he doesn't look like he's working hard, and then his body language is very flippant, I don't really care anyway. And then Glenn Whelan as well, I thought was very telling. In the last international break when he was on Virgin, he was saying this is somebody who's been in the camp, by the way, coaching, saying he doesn't think it hurts the lads enough. That to me is one of the worst things anybody can throw at a player. Yeah. It doesn't hurt you. You don't mind losing. People say there's good winners and bad losers. You should be a bad loser. You lose a game of professional football, you should be in the height of it. You should be a nightmare to be around. You shouldn't be able to brush it off, Raf, and go to the next one. So I get that impression with Doherty sometimes that he plays the game and whatever happens. It has to mean more. You have to have an awful lot of team spirit. And the one thing I know from being in that Irish dressing room, when we lost a game of football, there was nearly fisticuffs. It wasn't just lads, where's the nearest nightclub? Or get back to the rooms, get back to the hotel. Let's get back to our clubs. There was an inquest. There was almost, the world has ended. Can't believe we've lost the game. And these were against good, big quality opposition players. But yeah, look, for Matt, I don't know what he does. I don't know whether he takes a step backwards to go forwards, but one thing he needs to do is start enjoying his football, because he doesn't look like he's enjoying it to me. And when things start to grind like that, you're not playing with a smile on your face. I think it comes out on the pitch, and he just needs to enjoy it. And it doesn't look like he's enjoying it. And you could probably say that about Matt over the last 2 or 3 years. He just doesn't look like he's having fun when he's playing football. Although you could say that about all the Irish players, Raf. I don't think any of them are having fun when they're in an Irish jersey right now.
Yeah, and certainly for Manchester United players, I suppose it ties in a little bit to an extent, Barry, to something Christian Eriksen said after the 20 game last Thursday at Old Trafford when they drew 1-1. And I think his comment got a little bit misinterpreted. I think there was a part of it that was missing in terms of how it was being analysed. But he said basically along the lines that in that game, it looked like we didn't want it enough. But I think it seemed we didn't want it enough. He didn't quite say we didn't want it enough in that game. It was actually his error that led to 20's equaliser in the first place anyway. But then a few days on, they get hockeyed by Spurs 3-0. It could have been by a lot more. Obviously, there's the red card for Bruno Fernandes, and maybe there's an argument it shouldn't have been a red. Certainly Bruno Fernandes argues it shouldn't have been a red, that it was a foul, etc. But it just looks really bleak for them. And it feels like, from a United point of view, they did paint themselves into a corner with the decisions that they made in the summer in terms of sticking with Erik ten Hag.
Yeah, it looks like they bottled the decision in the summer after that cup win. And you hear Solskjaer talking about it when he was manager, about how a cup win can mask progression in the league. And that's what it seemed to be for Manchester United. And you just look at them at the moment, they just look energyless. They look like they don't know what way they're going to play. I don't know whether Ten Hag has bought into the way they're going to play, because you look at Jim Ratcliffe, he's on the record as saying that it's not the sole responsibility of the manager to dictate the playing style anymore. So has Jason Wilcox decided that this is the way they're going to play, and Ten Hag has agreed to do that to keep his job over the summer, and he's basically the players he's got to try and mould into that formation, and it's not working. It's not the way he wants to play. And you could just see it. You look at Rashford the other day, you talk about Doherty being disinterested. You could say the same about Rashford. He loses that ball, has no desire to go and win it back or even affect the game and try and stop a goal. And you could say that for a number of players from Manchester United. And they've spent like 616 million under Ten Hag. It's mad money when you think about it. And part of that is probably in the process of keeping as well. They were obviously courting other managers during the summer. Didn't didn't like one top of the list that they thought, well, this fella can go and replace Ten Hag, and he's got a couple of Ten Hag players there to deal with as well. So maybe it's a case of moving some of them on and getting in the right person. But you just look out, where are they going to go? Who is the right person at the moment? Because there's still no standout candidate at the moment, but it just can't go on the way it is for United.
Yeah, it's kind of telling. I think the name that's been mentioned over the summer as a potential replacement was Gareth Southgate. But anyway, we'll see what happens there. I suppose finally, Keith, other Champions League games on this week. Arsenal against PSG and Aston Villa against Bayern Munich, and also Man City are playing Slovan Bratislava. We've got a good few mentions on this podcast inadvertently, and also were trashed by Celtic in the first round of games. But Arsenal PSG, that's going to be kind of fascinating. Obviously PSG without Mbappe, and probably a very different proposition in terms of maybe they're more cohesive as a team. And then Aston Villa, this is a huge test for them against a Bayern Munich team that have made a good start to the season under Vincent Kompany so far.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to both games. I think the Arsenal PSG game will be a really, really enthralling game. There'll be lots of pace on the wings. I know, as you say, Mbappe is not at PSG anymore, but they still have some electric wingers that can go and hurt you. But I think Arsenal will be a little bit more confident because you can go, I wouldn't say stand on the halfway line, but you can be a little bit more aggressive with your press, knowing that Mbappe is not on the pitch. As I say, there's still pace there. There's still a lot to worry about. But when Mbappe is not there, I think that fear factor that PSG once had has gone down a level. So I expect Arsenal to win the game. I expect us to control the ball, move them from side to side, and just pick holes in them as we have done. And I think, we speak about the pace that PSG have on the wings. I think Arsenal wingers are up there with some of the best in the world, especially, Saka doesn't. You don't need me to stand here and speak about Saka. He gets all the praise in the world, and rightfully so. So many times he gets kicked up and down, but he turns out the next day and plays. And I don't know, he's so robust for a winger, Raf. And yeah, I expect Arsenal to throw a few punches. I expect us to go deep. Last 16, I don't. Last 16, maybe semi-finals would be, where I'd expect to go, somewhere like that, Raf, if we're going to be in the Premier League race as well. But look, it's our first step in. We're dipping our toe back into the water. And with the 8 games, you can lose a couple of games, draw a couple of games. It's not a necessity. It gives those bigger teams a little bit of breathing space at the start. But what I would like to see from an Arsenal point of view is go out, get the points on the board, and then take your foot off the gas when you're guaranteed going through to the next stages. And I think a lot of the big boys will be like that. Get the work done early, and towards the end, throw the kids out, get your break, and go after that. So yeah, I hope Arsenal go and get the win done. I can't wait for Villa to come back into the Champions League. I think that's going to be a real emotional one for all the Villa fans in Villa Park. And Bayern Munich coming to town. Unai Emery is doing a wonderful, wonderful job with Aston Villa the last couple of years, 7th and now 4th and back in the Champions League. Brilliant stuff from him. And yeah, Vincent Kompany coming back from a Bayern Munich point of view, I'm sure he'll want to prove. It didn't go too well with Burnley, although he did end up getting the Bayern Munich job, so it didn't go too badly on a personal point of view for him. But yeah, lots to look forward to. I think Aston Villa is a tough one. They've obviously done really well against young boys in the first game. They got their 3 points on the board, so maybe they can take their foot off the gas a little bit in this one. It's not one they're expected to win, but one I expect them to compete in and show their teeth a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see how all of those go as well, including Shamrock Rovers against APOEL in the Conference League as well, the first of a 6-game adventure in Europe. But that's it for this week. The build-up to the Nations League game against Finland will be a key part of next week's episode, so I'm due to speak to one of Finland's leading football journalists later this week, so we'll bring that to you next Monday, plus reaction to the weekend's League and FAI Cup action as well. But Keith Treacy and Barry Murphy, thanks very much for your time today.
Cheers, Raf.